Alright, of all the terrible engineering I've run across in my day, this one's not horrible. There's basically 4 Phillips screws that hold this cover on here, and then as you're lifting it off, be gentle because you have one electrical connector right there that thankfully is just a simple press and release, and then once you pull that off, then you can set that down away. Alright, so back to the false low flow again. My fix last year worked for 1 season and now it's back, and it's not working, doing the same fixes and everything. So I've looked in here and I've looked in the electrical connectors here and also in this one. I thought, just in case, maybe I don't really understand what this one does compared to this one. I mean, obviously this one seems to be the chlorinator, but last year's low flow was fixed by fixing the connection there. They're all clean. That's some cool stuff you can spray on your connections. So I thought, well, maybe there's a break somewhere in the wires. So I traced all these wires back, and I'm not remembering now which one was which, but you can basically trace them back. I want to say like maybe those two and those two were the chlorinator one with the 4, and then the one with 2 was, I believe, these 2. Anyway, they all have perfect continuity. So the next thing you would check is obviously your board. You'd want to look and see if there's anything real obvious, like a missing solder point, a capacitor that's just exploded or whatever, but I don't see anything real obvious like that. So it's probably an electronic problem, and it's probably something they built in to make sure that you have to buy a new one, because the old ones, if you had one, they had a little plastic arm that basically when the water flowed, it would push out of the way and it would tell it that there was flow. This one is done totally electronically, and so God only knows which one of these chips on here is malfunctioning. And a lot of times you can buy these little components that go on the circuit board and solder a new one in, and if you know what you're doing, you can fix them. I have fixed circuit boards before, but you got to know which one is bad, and they're not always obvious. So I don't know that I can fix this one. I mean, I sprayed the circuit board down with the deoxit, so maybe there was just a bad connection somewhere. There does seem to be continuity across these between this and the board, even though the soldering doesn't look all that great. You can always look on the back side too and see if there's any solder missing. And obviously this thing gets really hot when the pump is running, so it's possible that it would heat up the solder and make a malfunction. It looks like the board is held down with a couple screws. It might come off. I might, before I put this all back together, do that just to check the solder on this side of the board. But yeah, I haven't found anything, so we still have a false low flow. The pump still pumps perfectly, flows great, but it's not kicking on the chlorinator because it's thinking that it's not flowing. So yes, they are 4 Phillips screws to pull that back. It's not really practical to be able to remove it though, so I'm just having to do the best I can. But again, I'm not seeing any obvious breaks in the solder, so I kind of stumped on this one. So I don't know how much more time I'll spend. But if you're really good with PCBs, you can change out all these components and maybe save yourself a couple bucks. However, time and frustration may make it not worth it. There's even continuity. I can't show it. I don't bring my tripod with me, but basically, pop the probe into there, touch onto that lead, see it goes to 0. So continuity there, and then I did the same thing. The top one is whichever opposite one of those is, and then the ones on the that don't have the white on them are the power leads that go over on that side. But yeah, they all have continuity, so I don't know, frustrating.